So, Photoshop, if you have not seen it before, looks a little bit like this, very similar to every other Adobe program. Here you create new menu, probably the only thing you're going to worry about, anything recent files you've had opened, and then you've got some nice tutorials which are probably worth going through if you're not familiar with it. I mean, I'm going to cover a lot of it in class, but it'll just give you a bit of a bump, I guess, if you do these. So I'm just going to click create new, and then this gives you this dialog. So this is just choosing what size you want. Now for this class, everything you produce is going to be web large. So I'm just going to stick with that. But if you're doing your own thing, you can enter custom amount, loads of presets for different sizes of mobile phone, print sizes, photo sizes, blah, 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 everything you can think of. Or you can just enter custom values. You've got your orientation here. Again, for this class, you're going to be using horizontal, but you might use portrait at some point. Resolution, we'll talk more about that later. Color mode, we'll talk more about that. For the most part, you don't need to touch this. If you select web large, it will just preset everything here. So anyway, create. And this is Photoshop main, like the main stuff. So you'll see a lot of similarities to Illustrator. You've got your tools down the side here, you've got your menus up the top here, and you've got specific properties, etc. down here for anything you've got selected. This is fully customizable, so you can drag things out, pop things in. If you're not used to Photoshop though, I would suggest just leaving it the way it is. So the main tools, in Illustrator, we only did a tiny wee bit of it. We're going to use a lot more of Photoshop. We're going to use pretty much all of these at some point, I think. Yeah, I'll always show you them because they are actually all really useful. What you might notice though is you might end up with some tools missing. I remember I got confused in class the other day because in Photoshop you can go to Edit, Toolbar, and then here it gives you all the tools. So they might not show up in your toolbar. I don't know if there's any here that don't for me. But there's loads of stuff here. So if I'm ever talking about something and you don't have it listed here, go and find it in here. And then you literally just select it and move it over to extra tools, and it will appear in your toolbar up here. So that's how you do that. So I'm just going to cancel. I don't want this. Here you've got your layers, which you're going to use a lot of. I'm going to be using things called artboards. So if you've ever used Photoshop before, chances are it's just been one canvas. Artboards allow you to have multiple canvases open. I just went right off the screen there, but it'll allow you to have multiple canvases open at the same time. There's different ways you can duplicate them. We'll talk about that later, but just to give you an idea, if we go to the artboard tool here, and select this artboard. Oh, that's not the artboard tool. Select the artboard tool. There you go. If you push plus here, it's going to create more artboards. So you're going to end up with 5 web pages. So I would expect to see 5 artboards on your page. Now, don't start by duplicating them all over, because you can set up one and then basically just copy it, and it'll save you a lot of time. So down on your layers palette, you'll see go into their artboard files. So if you ever want to delete anything from here, you can either just highlight it and then push this wee delete button, or you can drag it down there. I always drag it down because it feels a bit more, I don't know, physical, I guess. To bring photos or images or vectors, whatever, in, there's multiple ways you can do it. You can copy and paste. Way I usually do it, you can import. The way I usually do it though is, I don't know if it's the best way, but I just go to open, and then nothing happens. There you go. And then I'll just select an image. So I'll select this one. There's a picture of Nick Cave. Really crap picture of Nick Cave. But you'll see it's opened it up separately in its own file here. So I can fiddle about with this without having to worry about affecting this at all. And if you get really into it, you might end up with tons of these at the top. But you'll see here, layer 1. If I add anything on top of that, so let's say for example, I'll just duplicate the layer. So if we go to layer, duplicate. Wow, this is really slow. I don't know why this is so slow. My computer's really good, this shouldn't be slow. Anyway, you'll see it's layered up on top there. So I can go in and manipulate the layers separately. Like so. And it works like the objects in Illustrator where they will layer up on top of each other, and it's kind of like top down, looking down in that direction. So if you imagine it, it's always described as sheets of acetate lying on top of each other. So for example, if I was to go in and just delete some of this top layer, don't worry about this, we'll talk more about that later. For some reason I wanted to have two Nick caves standing next to each other. That one you'll see first, whereas if that one's on top, that'll block out the one underneath because there's no space. Layers, if you're not used to them, can be a bit funky. They take a bit of getting used to, but they're pretty straightforward once you get used to them. Within the actual layer panel, there's not much you can do to them. Most of the tools that you'll use are up here. What you can do though is affect the opacity, which is just how see-through it is. And you can add effects and masks and things like that, but we will cover all that in due course. Yep. So that is your basic Photoshop layout. Opening a page, bringing a picture in, fiddling about with it. If I was to bring in more pictures, it would do it in exactly the same way. And that's your basic overview. I've got a wee bit of time, so I'll maybe talk about some of the most common tools you're going to use. So the first most obvious one is Move, right? And I'm just going to let you guess what that does. You'll see the cursor change when you've got it selected. So this wee arrow with the kind of wee compass thing on it, directional pad. And then again, you just grab and you'll be moving the image around, and you can move it off the canvas and it'll just not show you the bit off, but it doesn't delete it, it's there. Cool, so that's Move. Select and Lasso are kind of similar, the main difference being that Lasso is a set, the marquee tool is a set shape. So you've got rectangles and circles basically. If I draw that out here, I'll draw a rectangle. If I hold shift, it'll keep it equal and make it a nice square. The lasso tool is pretty much the same, except you can just draw any shape you want basically. Like so. Underneath, deselect please. There you go. Yeah, if you ever do what I do and accidentally zoom in, you can double click this hand and it'll bring it up. The hand is pan. Just move the screen around. Underneath the lasso tool, you've got your polygonal lasso tool, which is exactly the same but works in straight lines. And then underneath that, you've got your magnetic lasso tool, which is really cool, because what that does is you click on part of the image and it will basically trace along as close as it can to similar pixels. So if you're ever wanting to, say for example, let's deselect that. Say if I want to draw around Nick here, I can go and it'll just sort of clip to the outline of that. Now, there's certain times where it'll get a bit confused when the colours are very similar, so I'm actually surprised this is doing this so well. But we'll talk more about that when it comes to doing more selection tools. But that's quite a nice, easy way of selecting a nice edge. Like so. Magic Wand tool is another selection tool. So you see all the selection tools tend to be up here. They're all kind of grouped together. Magic Wand is similar to the magnetic tool, where you click on part of the image. Oops. You see here what's happened is I'm actually on this layer here. So that layer, if I hide this, doesn't have anything there. So when I clicked on it, it's just selected everything that doesn't have anything. Click down on the layer and you'll be able to select it. So if I click here, you'll see it only selects the white bit. If I click on this purple, it's probably going to select everything pretty much. Oh no, there you go. It's just selected up to the edges of that purple. Again, we'll talk more about this later. It's a really, really useful tool. You got your crop. You got something selected, it will only let you affect that. You can tell it's selected because of the dotted line around it. So at the moment, that purple bit's selected. This bit isn't. You can see it's got that selection, and then this bit's kind of been cut out of it. Again, it just takes a bit of getting used to. But if I deselect the crop tool, what that allows me to do is basically just pick parts. It's exactly the same as if you crop an image on your phone. It allows you to just manipulate, say there. I don't know why I do that, and then enter, and it'll just crop to that size. You can also do that with the selection tool, but crop tool is a bit more accurate. What else have we got here? Well, we'll cover more of these in time. Paintbrush tool, pretty obvious. Paintbrush, oops, So it'll only let me paint in the selected area there, which is quite nice. The colours are down here, so you've got your foreground and background colours. So that'll come into effect later with some of the other tools. But you can just click on it and select whatever colour you want, and it'll change the colour of it. If you want to use a specific colour that's already in the scene, then you can go and select the dropper, which is, I've lost it, here, the dropper tool. And that just lets you pick colours out of the scene. You'll see it appear here. So again, I'm going to cover all these over the course, but we've got your basic sort of move tools, selection tools, cropping tools. Then you've got your color, and these are really fun. We'll get to these at some point. These are like patching tools for fixing photos. Then you've got painting, stamps. This is big painting. Then you've got blurs and a thing called burn and dodge, which is basically light and dark, or dark and light, burn and dodge. Pens, which are exactly the same as Illustrator. Text, selection, blah, blah, blah. You know, pan and zoom. So everything's kind of arranged logically. Right, so that is your basic layout for Photoshop. Again, I just kind of warbled on a wee bit here, but I'll cover all these as we use them. I don't think there's anything else. Oh, that's, I just realised you can see 3ds Max in the background. So if you can't, that's what it should look like. That timeline doesn't exist. Photoshop does have a timeline, but it's not that one. Alright,